Hey y'all, welcome to Restless Chipotle Kitchen. Well, it has been super hot here in Texas. It's been 107, 108 degrees, and I am really not thinking about baking. But fall is coming and fall baking is coming, and one of the things that I get a lot of use out of is brown butter. So today we're going to talk about how to make it, when to use it, how to substitute for regular butter, and that's it. We're going to be all ready for fall, okay? So let's get started. Brown butter is super simple to make because really the only thing you're going to need is butter. I always suggest that you use a light bottomed pan. If you have a non-stick pan with a black bottom, you're not going to really be able to see the color of the butter. And since there's not an exact timing to this, you really want to be able to see your butter. So use a stainless steel pan, a pan with a white enamel bottom, however you want to do it, but make sure it has a light bottom. It's not a bad idea to get a pan if you're going to use brown butter a lot, which once you taste it and once you start using it in your baked goods, you're definitely going to want to use a lot. It's good to get a pan just for browning butter, and it makes things so much easier. But anyway, so you're going to need the pan, nice heavy pan that heats evenly. You're going to need a whisk or a spoon. I prefer the whisk. You're going to need a stick of butter, and it doesn't matter whether it's salted butter or unsalted butter. Most recipes will call for unsalted butter. I use salted butter. I don't see a big difference. I think the salted butter browns a little more quickly, maybe because of the salt in it, but either way, either one will work. And you're going to need a jar to keep your brown butter in with a top, and because you can keep this in the refrigerator for when you need it. Okay, that literally is all you need. So let's head over to the stove and get started. When I'm browning butter, I tend to cut it in pieces because it melts more quickly and evenly that way. You don't absolutely have to do this, but it's just a little trick, and I think it's helped a lot over the years. I think it works better. Let's just say that. And so we've got our butter in the pan. We're just going to turn it on. And I'm going to start this off at kind of a high heat. But once it starts melting, which it is already, I'm going to start turning it down because I want this butter to melt, but I don't want to burn it. And brown butter will, once it gets to the point that it starts browning, it will go really fast. If you happen to scorch your brown butter and you overcook it a little bit, don't worry, because you can strain it through a paper coffee filter, and usually, unless you've just really burned it, usually straining it through the coffee filter will make it to where you can use the brown butter. So you don't throw it out if you get it too brown. Just try straining it through the coffee filter and see if it'll work. All right, so it's melting. And we're just going to move it around a little bit while it's melting so we can kind of tell, we can keep it melting and we can kind of tell how fast it's going. And if you think this is the exciting part, just wait. No, this is quick and easy. It's one of those things that takes almost no time at all. I really never thought about doing a video about it until somebody was making one of my recipes with brown butter, and they asked me exactly what brown butter was, how they did it. So I was like, well, maybe somebody else doesn't know how to do it. So here we are. The butter's already melted. And I've got, the heat is on, let's see. My stove is so old that the marks of the gas thing that tells you, low, medium, high is all worn off. But I would say that this is a medium low. Now, what you're seeing here with this foam and the boiling, that's the water in the butter. Butter has water in it, has about a tablespoon of water in it. While we brown the butter, some of what's going to happen is that the water in the butter is going to evaporate, all right? And that's what you're seeing happen here. It's going to foam up and evaporate. We want to keep this butter moving because most pans don't heat extremely evenly. I mean, this is a good pan and it does heat evenly, but even with this, there's going to be hot spots in it. So we want to keep the butter moving so that we don't get one area down here that's browning and an area up here that's not, right? We just want to keep it even. So we're going to stir it every few seconds, and we're just going to watch it foam up, and you can see that it's not starting to brown yet, but you can see it's starting to get foamy. The other thing you can see, maybe, you see, I don't know if you can see it. The other thing that you can see maybe is that the milk particles, the milk solids, are starting to separate from the butter. You also want to use a wide pan, because if you have like a small saucepan and let's say your butter is deep, you're not really going to be able to see the color of it very well. Whereas with this, you can pretty much tell, even through the foam, that it hasn't started to brown yet. So keep that in mind. You want to be able to see the color of the butter. And you can just move the foam. And now, see, it is starting to brown. I'm turning it down. I'm going to move it off the heat for just a minute because it is starting to brown. It happened that quick. And if you move it off the heat, it'll help it stop cooking. And you can make sure that it's the color that you want it to be. You see how golden that is? I'm trying to get off the foam. Here we go. You see that's a kind of a golden color. I want it a little browner than that. Don't stop at the golden color. So we're going to put it right back on the heat. And we're going to let it go just a couple of more seconds because really it's already there. And now we're right there. That is about the color that you want, kind of a nutty golden brown. And just like that. Now, some people like theirs to be darker, and that's fine. If you're going to let it get darker, be real careful, okay? Because it'll go from golden brown to dark brown to scorched in just a few minutes. And once you turn the heat off, it's still going to continue to cook a little bit in the pan. So don't worry about it being too, that you haven't done it enough. If it's close to the color you want, then go ahead and take it off the heat. Leave it in the pan for just a minute, okay? And really, that's it. But let's talk about a little more over at the counter. I haven't made a whole lot of brown butter for today, but just one stick. And we're going to pour it in the jar so you can see the actual color of it. When you pour it, you're just going to see foam for a while. And then you can see these milk solids that are left. Let me get my spoon. You can see these milk solids that are left in there. So some people filter them out, some people don't. It's kind of up to you. I am not going to filter them out in this case because they've got a lot of flavor. If you use salted butter, keep in mind that as the butter browns, the salt, it kind of intensifies the salt. And so you're not going to want to put as much salt in the recipe as is called for. You're going to want to cut the salt down by maybe 1/4. Seriously, y'all, that was it. That's all it took. Here is this liquid gold brown butter, so good in so many things. Now, when you are using it in a recipe that calls for regular butter, you're going to want to add about a tablespoon of water. Remember how when we were cooking it, it foamed up and bubbled? That was the water coming off. When you make brown butter, you've got about a tablespoon of liquid that is lost during the process. So you want to add that back. Now, most people will add water back. I have been known to add my tablespoon of liquid back in the form of bourbon, which bourbon brown butter is a magical combination, delicious. So think about that. It doesn't always have to be water, but you are going to need another liquid, okay? Most of the time, you're going to use brown butter in its liquid form, unless your recipe calls for it to be chilled so that it kind of hardens back up. Not as much as the original butter did, but it'll get a little bit thicker. Excuse me. You can use brown butter in almost any recipe that calls for butter or oil. It just is going to make a huge difference. Chocolate chip cookies, brown butter is delicious in. Cakes, pumpkin muffins, pumpkin bread, brown butter is delicious. And you can even use it for buttercreams. So now that you know how to use this stuff, head over to the blog, find a recipe, and get to baking, okay? All right, and I will see y'all next week. Love y'all. Bye.